Karen is a trooper and she is a social media phenom. It's what, 2 o'clock in the morning there right now?
Yeah, it's 1 past 2.
Oh my goodness. If I was speaking at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would be inaudible. I would just get too groggy. So very impressed with your dedication to this. Karen, you've had the opportunity to speak at prior events, and we are big fans. You are definitely an educator that's on the cutting edge of a lot of the new things coming out. So I wanted to read your quick bio, and then I'll turn the time over to Karen so that you can walk us through your presentation today. So Karen Sutherland is a senior lecturer in public relations at the University of Sunshine Coast in Australia. She is the program coordinator of the Bachelor of Communication Social Media, also holding the curriculum development responsibility for social media minor and social media major, as the author of Strategic Social Media Management Theory and Practice, and co-author of Public Relations and Strategic Communication by Oxford University Press. Dr. Sutherland's research focuses include social media pedagogy, work integrated learning, graduate employability. Additionally, Karen is the co-founder and social media specialist at International Digital Marketing Agency. I can't say that word.
Dharana Digital.
Awesome. So we are so excited to have you. You will have a very impressive resume and lots of knowledge that we can all glean from. So I will turn the time over to you.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone. And so I will try and be as coherent as possible at this time in the morning, but it's a real honor to be here. So let me just share my screen and we'll get going. Okay, so my representation is really focusing on some research that I've completed over the last year, really, and it continues with graduates. And I'll explain the project more, but just asking them about their experiences learning social media at university and finding out what worked for them in the workplace, what prepared them most, what they needed that they didn't have, and just things that set them apart. So I'm really interested in that so that I can feed that back into my own course development and curriculum development. And then I'll move on to looking at what I call the real world experience spectrum, which is just the range of real world experiences that you can embed into your social media courses. I'd like to kick off with just a quote from one of the interviewees from the study. And one of the key themes that was coming out, and I'll unpack this in a lot more detail as we go through, just about by embedding these real world experiences, it's encouraging students to even start working in the field while they're studying. So there isn't that huge transition after they graduate. They already feel quite experienced and it's just a natural progression for them. So in this session, I'll talk a bit about the background of social media at the University of the Sunshine Coast and the project. Like, Share, Follow is the name of the project. And then we'll unpack just some of the findings and interesting outcomes from the study. And then I'll walk you through the real world experience spectrum. And then there'll be time for questions at the end. And this is a little GIF that I created when we went to Australia Zoo recently. So just a little bit of background of social media at the University of the Sunshine Coast. I arrived at USC Australia in 2015, and before me, so the first social media course was delivered in 2014, and it was very theory focused. So there wasn't a lot of sort of practical or application of theory to practice, which isn't a bad thing, but it really focused on more around the sort of the theories involved with social media. When I arrived, I came from Monash University, and I'd been teaching a course there called Online Public Relations that were very much about social media, but there was a lot more practical application of theory. So I reworked that first course to more apply that. So rather than just having discussions about theory, we used the social media tools in the class. We developed blogs and things of that nature, and wrote a lot around sort of social media content just to try and apply those communication theories. Now, that worked really well. It was quite a popular course. And then I was asked to create a social media minor that was 4 courses that was first delivered in 2017. And so with that, there was 3 of those courses involved students working directly with real clients with great support from the university, of course, and guidance. And then in 2019, I was asked to actually deliver a degree, so with a major in social media. And I was very fortunate that Karen Freeberg actually came all the way from the US to help me launch that on the Sunshine Coast. So that was a bit of fun for us. Now, with that history aside, I'd like to talk to you about a project I've been working on since it was about mid last year, where I have been interviewing graduates. So actually, I did my 51st interview yesterday, where I'm interviewing graduates who they're graduates from the university. They're not graduates from the social media degree per se, but the thing that connects them with the sample is that they must have studied at least one social media course at the university, just so there's that common thread. And so as part of this, the interviews, I've actually made it into a live streaming show. So when we interview, I interview them, we're streaming live across Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, and then uploaded to YouTube later. So just an interesting way to collect interview data. And this particular study actually follows on from a lot of research I've been doing over probably the past 10 years, really, where I have, with a team, with different people from USC and Monash and other universities, including some work with Karen Freeberg as well, we've researched educator perspectives, employer perspectives, current students, all around how they use social media in their courses, how they want to learn about it. With the employers, we looked at the different skills that they wanted in terms of social media proficiency from graduates coming into the workplace. And we also asked them about what they deemed the most unprofessional social media behaviours. So that was an interesting study too. But the missing link really, and the missing piece of the puzzle for me, was asking graduates about their experience and what they actually found useful. So that's where this project was born. And the beauty of this project is that from a university level, it has many purposes. So apart from being a method of data collection, it helps me to really explore with graduates just how relevant is the social media education we're providing to them, and how well is it preparing them for the realities of the workplace. Next, it helps to inform me and other social media educators around pedagogy and curriculum development, so that we can keep improving it. So we get that feedback from the current workplace and industry from our graduates who are experiencing it, so we can keep refining and enhancing. And then it's also great for current students. So what I do with these interviews is I have a number of Facebook groups for different social media courses, and I share these interviews into these groups as well. If current students aren't following me, because they're not expected to at all, just to make sure that they're sort of they're being exposed to these interviews as well, because it helps a lot of current students feel a bit confused about how do I enter the industry, how do I do this, how do I do that, rather than me telling them all the time, which I think they get sick of listening to me, and they don't seem to listen to me as well as someone closer to their own age who has experienced it. And that makes sense because they can relate more and better to people who are sort of closer in age and experience to themselves. So it helps to guide current students into the industry as well. Next, it also helps to inspire current students, because sometimes they just feel like they're just doing this course and they just don't know what they can do at the end of it. But these interviews have shown graduates going in a whole range of different directions. They're not all working in the social media space, but they're using these social media skills that they gained at university for a whole range of professions and industries. So it just shows them just what is possible. Next, from as you heard with my introduction, I am a PR and marketing person at heart, and so it is also a great way to promote our programs to the wider community because I'm sharing these interviews on live and across different channels. So it's a great way to share with others just what our graduates are doing now, and it also has worked to almost highlight and showcase our graduates to current employers and to prospective clients and customers, because as you'll see when we look at some of the outcomes, by doing this, it's actually reminded people or shown graduates in a new light to people they already know, and it's given people the chance to actually hear them speak with authority because they do have great experience to share. And finally, it's a great way to reconnect with our alumni because often some of the things I've heard back from the people that I've interviewed is that I've been the only one who's really tried to keep in contact and that sort of thing. And they felt doing these interviews helped them feel valued by the university and they felt reconnected with the university as well. So it's a great way to just keep strengthening that relationship because clearly it doesn't end after graduation. We should keep fostering this relationship because our grads are our greatest advocates because it's their word of mouth they share with others around their experience that can help to bring more students in, and it's also a great way to ensure that maybe they might come back for postgraduate study, although that's not the intention, but sometimes that actually happens as a result. Now, the formalities. So I do have ethics approval from the university, I have to say, so that's fine. The graduates who participate in the interviews, they must sign a consent form before they're allowed to do that, and they're well aware it's being live streamed and everything is open and clear and transparent for them, and they're shown previous interviews as well, so they know exactly what they're signing up for. And I also needed to gain approval from our marketing and external engagement area for things like use of the logo in the promotions, and just so they're aware that I'm doing this to in a way to promote the university. Now, research questions from the study. So there was really three key things I want to unpack with these interviews. So I really want to know what we're doing well that's actually supporting graduates as they move into their own careers after university. I also want to know what we're missing because this is so important. What are the skills and knowledge that they've felt that they've needed when they've entered the workplace that we haven't been including? And then finally, I want to know from their perspective and from feedback from their employers, what set them apart in gaining these roles and their current roles that they're doing now. So finding out what from their, why were they chosen above other candidates going for that role? Because I think that really helps to, again, bring that into the courses that we're teaching. The sample, so it's a purposive sample. So I'm mainly finding grads from LinkedIn and Facebook student groups because they're still members as alumni. And as I said before, they have to have completed at least one social media course at their university. And so far, so I've actually interviewed 51 graduates now, and they're mainly female, but in our social media courses, it is very predominantly female students more than male students. There's probably a study in that. So that'll be interesting to look at in the future. And my aim is to do 100 interviews, which I know is a lot for a qualitative study, but I just think a larger sample will, provide even much richer information, and it's actually quite fun. And I'm actually enjoying the show, and other people seem to be too. So that's why I thought about 100. Who knows? It might even go further than that. With the questions, so I really try and take them through when they left university through to what they're doing now, and to provide details on what they found helpful. So you can see here, I get them to share their story. I also want to know what advice has been the most beneficial to them in their career so far. And again, you can see the research questions sort of woven in through the questions in there. I also wanted to ask them, because social media changes all the time, what is something recent that they've learned that they could share with other people? Because they're out in industry and they're working in the field, and I think it's great to be able to talk in those sort of terms. And then advice to current students about how they can succeed. And then finally, the name of the show is Like, Share, Follow. So I always ask them who they like, share, and follow, and get them to tag those people in as well into the comments of the live streaming video, just so other people can follow up as well. So not only is it a research study, it's a great way to share information as well and keep building that on social media. Now, preliminary findings. So it's interesting. So clearly, the most beneficial things that graduates have found so far is that they want to work with real clients. So we have a lot of that embedded in our courses throughout the degree and the major. And so they found just getting that client experience supremely beneficial. Things like, in some of our courses, it's the first time some students are picking up the phone and talking to a client on the phone, and getting that experience that when they actually leave university, it's just second nature because they've done it. They don't have to go through that period, and we can coach them as well on how to do that. And it sounds really simple, but some students aren't so confident about doing things like that. So it just takes a little time with them to gain their confidence. Internships, of course, they found that really beneficial. The students who seem to be succeeding the most in whatever terms success are, but those sort of going very far in their careers quite quickly, are those who actually took advantage of extracurricular opportunities. So we had many of those, and I'll show you on the real world experience spectrum what I mean by that. So things like extra internships, helping out at events, doing things like going on excursions and study tours and those sorts of things. Group work, they found beneficial. Clearly not when they're at university. When students are at university, I know they find group work challenging, but they see the benefit of it when they leave, because most things involve group work when you're out working in a workplace. And managing multiple tasks simultaneously. So when they're at university and they have a lot of things due on the same day, a lot of assignments due on the same day, it is very stressful. But again, when they leave, one of the common themes was that they actually found this really helpful, because that's the reality of their working day. Now, in terms of what they're missing, so one of the key things is not learning how to produce work within industry timeframes. So, for example, if they have an assignment that, say, they have to write a blog post, they sometimes have 4 weeks to write that blog post. But when they're out working, they might have an hour to really smash that out. So I think they want more, situations where they can actually, or simulations where they're supposed to produce something in a short amount of time, just to get used to doing that. Networking, they want to learn more about how to do it, but also why it's so important, because that has been missing, and more real world experiences. So even more than what we've been giving them, they were really hungry for that and saw the benefit of that. And the knowledge and skills that set them apart according to their employers and themselves too. So it was really that balance between practical and theory. Having a portfolio that showed real examples, so not sort of assignments with a company that they didn't actually work for, but actually real client examples in a portfolio was most beneficial, and was deemed as sort of something that put them apart from other uni graduates without that. And just that great balance of interpersonal and written communication skills. They need both. So they need to write well, but they also need to be able to deal with people really well and have those relationship management skills. Other things that have happened, which has been quite interesting too. So some of the graduates have been promoted after being on the show. And as I hinted at before, by being on the show, when I promote the show, I tag the businesses on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And so this comes to the attention of senior management sometimes. And so they tune in or they watch the recording later. And this has actually helped to showcase the graduate, and they've sort of even increased in estimations with the senior manager. And yeah, they've been offered further opportunities at the company, which has been amazing. It's been great. I've also received requests from other graduates to be on the show, which is good. And also invitations to speak at events and on podcasts. And this has happened to the graduates, and it's happened to me as well. So, which has been really great. I always like to have a chat. And we started this semester an undergraduate certificate in social media. So it's like a 1 semester 4-course qualification that can be done online. And I found that people have mentioned when they've enrolled in that they saw like, share, follow, and it's encouraged them to enroll in that offering, which is a great result too. Right, now I'm going to move on to the real world experience spectrum. So it looks very busy, this slide, but we'll spend some time here. So this shows just a whole range of experiences that you can embed into social media education to give students more real world experience by the time that they graduate. And you can see that it ranges in not only sort of the exposure to direct client work, but also in the work that's involved. Like I'm not going to gloss over this and say some things are quite labour intensive from the academics point of view, but the outcomes are just so worth it. So I'll talk through each one of those just to unpack each one and explain ways that I've included them in our courses at USC Australia. So firstly, on the, not really the lower end, but I guess with the, on the one end of the are guest lectures. So for industry people coming in and giving guest lectures to students about particular topics. So we do this in 2 or 3 of our courses. So we have a social media analytics course. We have a course on strategy, content curation and creation. And so, for example, with the latter course I mentioned, we have Ben Amos from Innovate Media come in. He's a video production specialist, and he does often I do a lecture on video production. And then he'll come in and do a Q&A with the students. So this semester he Zoomed in, and because the students each had a client in this semester, and so he answered those questions about video production in the context of their clients. We also have people who own agencies come in. So we have Bronte Creswell, who's the owner of Dash of Milk Agency on the Sunshine Coast, and she gives a full lecture on branding and visual content and aesthetics and things like that. So that's good. And I think the beauty now with Zoom has really opened up our world about who we can get and when, and it's really opened the door for so many people to be able to come in and speak as guest lecturers for our courses. The next one is personal channels. So this is where students are creating content for for their own channels, or they're also auditing their own social media use, their own channels. So they're learning these sort of business skills and applications, but applying them to their own channels and their own social media presence. And it's things like developing their brand. So it's really based on their presence on social media. So we do that with audits. In some courses, students develop a blog, and then they also vlog in it and embed that. If we use WordPress, and they embed that in as an assignment. And they learn other ways to really assess their own personal brand. We incorporate LinkedIn, those sorts of things. Next are tools, software, and simulations. So there's a whole range there, as I've got here. We've been very fortunate enough to build relationships with these tools. So we have Stukin, of course, and HubSpot, TalkWalker, Hootsuite, and Facebook Blueprint. So these allow, not all of them are used as assessments, but for some of the tools, particularly in our social media analytics class, we use TalkWalker and we use Hootsuite. And we also encourage students to do extra work if they want to. So doing some of the certifications on HubSpot and Hootsuite, and also Facebook Blueprint. It's just to give them extra. With them, the Hootsuite classroom program, students can do some of the certifications for free. So I highly encourage them to do that. So just providing those opportunities, because they don't know they're there. So we often in our course sites, I'll have a list of all the certifications that they can do to extra, and you'll get the super enthusiastic students who will want to do everything. And it's just having options there for students who want to do more if they choose to. And that goes with industry certifications. So as I said, with HubSpot and Facebook Blueprint, so Facebook Blueprint costs. So I do encourage, but it's up to them, because students need to pay for that themselves. So there's never any restrictions or any requirements for students to actually pay for any of the tools that we use in the classes. It's all sort of optional, and we use a lot of, particularly with the analytics course, we use a lot of free trials and things like that, just for them to get a feel of the different tools that are available. Next, we have excursions and field trips. So one of our favourite things to do is once a year we will go somewhere, and this is open to all social media students at USC. There's I normally pay for about 20 places for them to go somewhere. This year we went to Australia Zoo, and I'll show you, I've got a little video on that, as I'll show you what we got up to and explain a bit more. But it's a great way to get out of the classroom and we went to Australia Zoo. We met the marketing team, and students learned about how the zoo is marketed on social media, the sort of brand messaging, key messaging, colours, hashtags, those sorts of things. And then students who wanted to were given the opportunity to be part of a competition where they had to go out and create content around the zoo using the things they learned from the marketing team, posting on their own channels. And then if they wanted to be in the competition, they sent me links within a certain time frame. And the student who had the highest engagement rate, so it was based on, because clearly some students have more followers than others, so it was all done on engagement rate. They won. The student who won the chance to complete one of the Facebook Blueprint certifications. And so this did cost money. The way I paid for it is that I've been delivering social media workshops for some organisations around the Sunshine Coast, and they pay the university for me and commission me to do those. And so I've been saving up that money, and I use some of that to pay for this experience. And the students just loved it. It was such a great day, and we all learned a lot from it. So let me just play the video from that for you. It's very quick. I'll just go back. Okay. So next on the list is study tours. So when we were freely allowed to travel, we've been on a number of tours. There's a funding scheme with the Australian government called the New Colombo Plan, and so it funds study tours to a whole range of countries. So mainly there's a group of countries that they support the travel to. So we went to, over the years, we've been to Vietnam. So we spent a week in Ho Chi Minh, and we went to Hong Kong as well. And the last trip was to Mumbai in India. And on each of those trips, we've really just visited agencies and learned more about social media and how it's used in those countries, as well as doing other sort of cultural interesting things like cooking classes and those sorts of things, and visiting, doing a bit of sightseeing. But it's been a great way to learn more, because social media is used differently around the world, and it's the audiences are different and the needs are different. We've learned some fascinating things, and it's just really opened up students' worldview around social media and how it can be used. And I've got a video from our trip to Mumbai. This time when we went to Mumbai, we were there for 2 weeks. And so I even furthered that real world experience there, where we went into 3 different organizations during the trip, and students went in the first day and interviewed the people who looked after their social media or who needed help with their social media. We went into non-profit organizations, and then they interviewed them, went back, and over the next day developed a presentation with some tips and ways that they could help this organisation to enhance their social media performance, and then went in the following day and presented that to them. So it was really a great way for them to learn that process of auditing, interviewing, researching, and then producing something really within that sort of industry time frame as well, in a completely different country. So it was an amazing experience. So here's a little video that we had produced when we went to, it was in Mumbai. It was a performance troupe called Malakam India, and they do these amazing sort of balance. It's a sport in India where they're on these poles and they do these amazing balancing and acrobatics. It's really amazing. And so we went in to them, to their organisation, and performed that process of auditing and then creating something and presenting the next day. And I really was hands off. I guided and answered a couple of questions for the students, but I let them go with it, and they did an amazing job. So here's that video.
So my name is Amy Bailey.
My name is Madeline Conlon.
Tia Somerville.
Cindy Buxton.
We visited Malakam, India over 2 days. So the first day we really, I guess, just learnt a little bit more about them. So we learnt about the Malakam and why they love it so much, why they're passionate, and the history of it.
And we talked to them about what they're currently doing with their social media, why they're doing the things that they're doing. So working alongside them, finding out what their goals are, we were able to formulate a report.
It was really insightful, and it was really great to put a name to a face.
It's been so far just an amazing opportunity.
I picked up a lot of really good techniques and practical experience that I'll be able to take back to Australia.
So that was an amazing trip, and hopefully we will be able to get back to doing things like that again in the future. Now, the next level or next stage of this spectrum is direct client work. So we do this in a number of courses, and I think I've presented on this before in one of the courses that we do, because in one of the courses we have usually about 100 students, and I match them with 100 clients, and it's quite a big undertaking, but it's a really great thing to do, and I've developed processes over time. I've written a blog post about my processes on that, so if you're keen to learn more about that, let me know. My contact details are at the end, and I will send you the link to that blog post. But it's it really helps. Like we do it in three or four courses. So in one course, students are developing a social media strategy and content, and we deliver that to the client at the end of the semester. In one, it's a transmedia storytelling campaign course. So social media is part of that, but it's multi-channel. So students work in groups with that, where they pitch a campaign concept to the client, and then they develop a campaign proposal with 5 pieces of content to support the proposal. And the other one is social media analytics. So that our course on that, and then students work individually and then match with a client, and they find out what the client wants to know in terms of their social media performance, and then students gather the data, analyze, and then develop a report with recommendations that the client gets at the end. And so students, we have insurances to cover all of this, and with the use of data and things of that nature, they need to sign a confidentiality agreement. So we have all these sort of measures in place to protect the university and the student and the client. But that's been really effective, and it's actually led to, as we move through the spectrum, to students being employed, which is for their social media skills, which is a really great outcome. So the next one, so with that, students, I have to make clear that with the direct client work, students are guided, very carefully, and they're not live on their clients' channels at this stage. They're just producing artifacts that the client gets at the end. So it's more around developing and client relations and collaboration to produce something. The next stage is supervised. So this is around where we have students and they've gone through all the other courses. So this is a final semester course where they're actually they go through the whole cycle of social media management for a client. So individually, they have a client, they work with that client for the first 4 weeks, develop a really robust social media strategy. Then they implement it over 6 weeks. So it's a 6-week strategy. And then for the last 3 weeks of the semester, they're gathering data on their performance and developing a report that the client gets at the end. And the beauty of this is that they actually get experience with advertising, Facebook ads if the client wants that and has a budget, very close supervision as well. The client has to approve all content before it goes up as well, just to go through that actual real life process. The other thing is students they actually have real results to show prospective employers at the end of this course, because with the others, they have the artifacts, but this is, they actually have results based on what they've done, the strategy they've created, they've implemented, and they can actually have that, which is a really great thing to show. Next is internship. So students are out completely immersed in a workplace. So at the moment we have an internship which is quite intensive. It's 208 hours, the equivalent of around 5 weeks of work. And some students will actually, we allow them to do it in the uni break. So they're actually full-time employed at the agency. Some break it up over the semester, but the actual really intensive one over the 5 weeks where they're fully employed, both the internship hosts love it as well, because it means that they can really teach students what it's like and give them really meaty tasks to undertake during that time. Next is networking. So you'll see here, underneath the little Australia Zoo GIF is there's a photo of taken at every year we do a social media networking event at the end of one of the courses. So it's the course where students develop the strategy and content. And so what they do is we invite all the clients from the course and we find out which ones are actually open to the idea of possibly hiring students on a freelance basis to help with their social media. And the students who come, we find out which of those are also looking for opportunities. And I give this group of people the same coloured name tag, so they all get a yellow name tag. And the people who aren't interested in those sorts of things, they get a blue name tag. So at the beginning of the event, when I introduce everyone, I let people know that people with the yellow name tag are open to chat about this opportunity, and it just reduces any awkwardness, because for some students it's their very first networking event. So we have, in the lead up to that, we have workshops and things on teaching them more about networking and what to do just to make them feel more comfortable. And it's a really great event. So we normally have about 50 people come, and it's for some of the employers, it's the first time they've ever stepped foot on the university campus, which is really a great way to build connections with our community as well. So so I'm actually in the midst of organising that. Ours is next week and next Thursday. And because of last year we had to do it via Zoom, so we're back to face, but I'm also doing a Zoom one as well, just so everyone can have the opportunity to go. Next, following on from that is sort of this is extracurricular. So this is Freelance Social Media Manager. So this is where, for the first time, one of the big needs and demands that have been coming from the student body is that they're really keen to take on freelance social media management work, but they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. And it's not really like the business side of it and the mechanics of it. It's we'd need a whole course on that. Like, we have it in social media management, the course where they're live on the channels, but we need stuff for students who don't get through all the others. So I've developed a workshop with a recent grad who went through that process and is now working as a graduate with many clients. So as on a freelance basis. So we're delivering a workshop next Monday for the first time with all of these things, from how to find clients, how to set yourself up with the business aspects, the business processes, invoicing, insurance, all that sort of stuff, in a 2-hour workshop. And we're going to record it and I'll chop it up into little segments as well, so that students can watch it on demand. And then finally, as I mentioned, some of our students have gone through the process or done bits and pieces, and they actually go off to be their own agency owner. We have some students who are employing other students now because they have so many clients on a freelance basis, and so they've started their own businesses as a result of the real world experience they've gained in the courses. And just as a nice little sort of loop back, we then invite them back to, because they're industry people, to actually give guest lectures. So there you go, in a nutshell. That is the real world experience spectrum. So I've got a couple final slides and then there'll be time for questions. So this was a really great quote from one of the grads and from Like, Share, Follow. So it's really hit on the fact of the real life, working with real clients has been really helpful, and learning how to make real documents and go through real social media processes, and also having access to the tools and things as well, as I mentioned, is what really she found set her apart in job interviews, because she could speak the same language of the employer. So in conclusion, as you can see, embedding real-world experiences can really help to prepare some students for the realities of the workplace. In engaging with your grads, they're such an amazing source of information, and they're generally so happy to hear from you that it's a really great relationship to continue. And there are so many types of real world experiences that you can embed into your courses, because some may not work, some may be a bit too labor intensive, or you don't have the resources, and that's fine. But there are other ones that don't take so much work to do, and the students benefit so much. If you would like to connect with me, feel free. Here are my details on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. The next episode of Like, Share, Follow is on the 23rd of June. I don't know if the time zone will suit many of you, but you're welcome to come along. But it will be available afterwards on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And these are the books that were mentioned previously. So Strategic Social Media Management Theory and Practice goes through that whole cycle of social media management, and then public relations, strategic communication. And that's it for me. So there's time now for questions.
Fantastic. I was chatting with one of my coworkers during a session, and we're like, she's she's a go-getter. That is a ton. And to have an individual client project for all of your students, it's pretty incredible. I did put a link in the chat, and I'm not sure if it's the correct blog post, but I was on your blog going through, and you have a couple articles that kind of mention your client work. So definitely go give that a look if you want to check that out. We did have a few questions come in through the chat. Your good friend Karen Freeberg, she had some questions for you, so I'll ask those now. She said, what are the future directions you see graduate social media what are the future directions you see graduate social media education heading? I read that weird, but I think what she's trying to say is what's the future of social media education?
Yeah, look, that is a good question. I think it's going to grow in importance, and I think last year really showed how much and how valuable social media skills are. When there was a time where that was really the only real way that we were connecting individually, communities and businesses. So I think, the necessity for these skills is going to grow, but not just for marketing students as well. I think, with our courses, there's the 4 courses in the minor, they're open to all students. And we have, like one of the courses, the one with the 100 students, we have nutrition students doing it. We have health communication, like it's a skill now, it's a communication skill that can't be just for marketers. I think some aspects need to be, but I just think it will become a more widespread skill, and it will be valued a lot more.
Awesome. So real quick, I had a question come in about the payment for your students when they're doing those agency works. If you feel comfortable sharing, what is kind of a range that you would expect your students to be paid for the work that they're giving their clients?
So if they're doing freelance work, normally it is a agreement between the student and the client. But we say, while they're students, between $25 and $35 an hour. But it's what some students do. They actually have packages, so they're much more organized. So they'll say, we'll post this many times on this many platforms and give clients actual packages. So for $100 a week, you will get this much. So it really depends on the student and the agreement that they have and what they're willing to do. But generally we say between $25 and $35 an hour, Australian.
That's great advice. I think that's the toughest part. But what I've learned over the course of seeing professors do client work is, if you don't put value to your students' work, then the client's going to just write it off. Like it's a free service, so I'm not going to take it very serious. But when the expectations are set early on that, hey, they're going to work really hard for you and you're going to pay them for the work that they are going to provide, I think that just, it gives it more weight to both the client and the student to put forth that effort.
Yeah, and I think too, like with the particularly the course where with the strategy and the content, that they supply that at the end. There's no payment for that, but it's almost like the beginning of the funnel, because the client gets that, and then they're like, oh, okay, that was really good, and then we invite them to the networking event, and students showcase their work there, And then, normally we get about 20% of clients who then will employ from that. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. That is awesome. We are a little bit short on time, so I think we'll end it there. But Karen, thank you so much. Go get some sleep, rest up.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
All right.
And feel free to connect with me online. Thanks.
See y'all.
Bye.